Hi, Susan. How are you?
Hi, Seal. I'm great. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And if people are listening on their regular podcast app, they don't know that we have a guest with us. But if they're watching on YouTube, they can already see who's with us.
I want
Angie.
to, Hey, Angie, I want to welcome Angie Weevil, and she is with Grandview Drapery Studio. Did I get that right?
You got that right.
In
Yes.
Colorado.
Mhm.
And we have brought Angie in as our thread expert.
Oh.
And you know what? She might not have been an expert several months ago when we asked her to do this podcast. But in that time, she's had time to have a crash course, and she knows way more about thread than I do. So I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for taking the challenge of
Oh, sure.
researching thread first.
We'll see how much I actually know.
But here's the thing, Angie. I think that so many of us just use the same thing over and over again until we have a special need or something goes wrong and we realize that we're using the wrong thread for that particular project. And Susan raised her hand.
Yeah.
I'm raising my hand on
what
that
went
one.
wrong.
Yeah. I often sit down at my sewing machine and start sewing without even looking at what's on there. So that's not so great. So tell us a little bit about your experience in researching the threads, because we're all geeky and we love this stuff.
Just lots of online searches, but even before this, I found some really helpful charts that explain thread size, thread to machine size, machine needle size, that kind of thing. But just a lot of digging in. I even called the New Bedford Thread Company about the it didn't work. Their phone number is, I don't know if it's disconnected or what, but just to find out information, I called WAWAC with some questions about some threads. And yeah, so I learned a lot in this process too. Some things that I didn't know, and I'm like, oh, I better pay attention with a few things that I had been doing. I better make some changes. So
okay.
Well, that's a great discovery, when you learn something that can help you and your business. So let's get started. Let's just get all the geeky stuff out of the way. All right. So explain, and we have a lot of listeners that are new and they don't know all the threads we have for the industry. And even those of us that are in the industry don't try a lot of threads because we know it works for us. And we don't even maybe understand what text is and the twist and all that stuff. So if you'll just maybe go over some of the basics of what makes thread, what differentiates thread sizes and things like that.
Okay. Well, we can start with thread size. And I will tell you, it's the reason why a lot of us are confused is because there is no industry standard for thread sizing. So that's why it's so complicated.
Okay,
yeah.
Good.
They're trying to move into text size, TEX being the standard, but there's some pushback from quilters and those in the embroidery. They like their weight measurement and they want to keep it that way. So it's just a mishmash really of a lot of different formulas. Some manufacturers have adopted other manufacturers' weight classifications, but yet they're not following the same formula. So they're labeling it as maybe a 40 weight thread when it's not a 40 weight thread. So that's why we're all confused, because there is no standard. But some of the main ways of classifying thread would be text, like I just talked about, TEX. There's denier, there's weight, which is WT. There are so many different ways to classify it, but I'm going to mostly talk about text because that is kind of what they're trying to move into, and it just makes a lot more sense. So I'll explain how they come up with that number. They are taking a fixed measurement of thread, 1,000 meters of thread, and they are weighing that in grams, and that weight in grams becomes the text number. So if that 1,000 meters weighs 40 grams, it's a text 40 thread. So the higher the number, the heavier the thread. The lower the number, the lighter weight the thread. And denier is the same way, but they're using 9,000 meters and they're measuring that. So you're just going to always get a higher number for denier. We don't see denier quite as frequently as we'll see text and maybe weight. So with weight, WT, like they used to label the little Coates and Clark spools with WT40. Weight is derived by taking like a fixed length of thread, a kilometer of thread actually, or yeah, kilometer of thread. No, sorry, so confusing. They take a fixed weight of thread, so a kilogram, and then they're measuring the length, and that becomes the weight number. The length becomes the weight.
Okay.
So with that system, the higher the number, the finer the thread. The lower the number, the thicker the thread. So that doesn't make sense to me at all.
Oh my gosh.
So
It's like they came at it from the opposite direction.
they did. They
Yeah.
came from the opposite direction. And weight, WT happens to be one of the least reliable methods that they use because companies will say if there's like if they're getting a thread imported from Japan and it's a 50/2, which would mean 50 represents the weight, the 2 represents the ply, how many plies are wound together, or a 50/3, you know, Americans would classify both of those as a 50 weight thread, 50 WT, but the ply makes one heavier than the other. So it's not very reliable, and all purpose threads are notoriously labeled as a 40 weight, and they're not all 40 weight. So that's why they're trying to move to text, is because it's accurate. So if you're really confused by that, there are some charts that you can find. WWAC has some on their website. You can click on any one of their threads that they offer for sale, and down at the bottom, it'll say additional information. And they've got several PDFs there that you can convert with the formula, your weight to a text, assuming the weight is actually accurate. You know, they've got a lot of really helpful, I think I have one here I could show you. Oh yeah, so that's a conversion chart. If you want to do math.
Because we don't do nearly enough of that in our work.
I know, right? Right. So for me, I just stick with text, and I can look at WWAC's website and it's going to tell me the text of every single thread that they sell.
Okay.
So that's a good way to just kind of get used to it. If you're already used to weight and you just know, you know, which threads you like, that's fine. But if you're starting out, start paying attention to text size, because predominantly on the bigger cones of thread that we use, it'll be listed on there. You'll see a T60 or a text 60.
Yeah,
you may not see it on the little Coates spools don't list the text.
Yeah,
but the
here's
bigger
one
ones
here, and this is tucked inside.
Yeah. Oh, keep it dry.
Yeah. So here's the dual duty. I mean the turco satin.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So that's on the end, and that one is, let's see, text 80.
Yeah.
And this is dual duty Coates and Clark text 40. It's on a label on the inside. So sometimes they're labeled, sometimes they're not, but
yeah, that's why it's nice if wherever you're purchasing your thread, if they list it for you, that's super helpful. And then you can I have a couple of cones. I just mark it in there when I get it. I'll put the text size in there so I know if it's not already listed.
And you know, that's actually a great idea, because I have some threads that I bought to try, or because maybe my usual one was out or there was a sale, and I don't know what they are.
I know.
I just bought them and put them on the shelf, and then I don't know what they are. So it would have been smart if I'd marked that.
Yeah, just take a Sharpie and mark the bottom of the cone. You're good to go. So that's about it for like weight. We could go into, I mean, there's a lot. There's this whole list of different ways of classifying thread, but I don't think we need it. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. So,
well, what about, you talked about ply? Is that the same thing as a twist, or the ply is how many are twisted together, correct?
Yeah. How many yarns are twisted together to comprise to make the thread. And the twist there's 2 twists available. There's a Z twist, which is a left twist. And those are going to be the threads that we're going to use in our industry. For our sewing machines, they're all going to be Z twist threads. And the other would be an S twist, which is to the right. And apparently when we use our sewing machines, our machines naturally put a twist on the thread. So if you were to use the wrong twist of thread, your machine would be untwisting it as you're sewing. And then you'd have a mess. But
really,
yeah. But like Sailrite doesn't even sell S twist right twist thread. we're going to be using the left twist. So I don't think it's something we have to worry about.
Okay.
You'd have to really look for some obscure threads to find an S twist.
But in the meantime, if you've been using an obscure thread because you had some in your stash and it's unwinding,
untwisting,
you now know why.
Now you know why. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Now it makes me thinking, like, for hand sewing, would it matter whether you had a Z twist or an S twist?
I don't think so,
Yeah.
because we're not really, well, I don't know, Susan. I
Yeah.
mean, I've got a couple of them.
I'm turning to I'm S. Well, yeah. Okay. I'm going to overanalyze.
I think it matters more for machine sewing, but I don't know. I'll have to pay attention to that and see if any of my threads start untwisting and unraveling. I don't know.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what about fiber content? What are most
Fiber content
that we're using in our workrooms made of?
Most of the time we would have 3 fibers that we're using. Polyester is going to be the most common, but we can also use cotton, and nylon would be the third one. And it's important to know the characteristics of those, because you can't use them all the time. You have to be, well, I'll just talk about the benefits of each and then the drawbacks of each.
Okay.
So cotton, I don't think we typically machine sew with 100% cotton thread anymore. That's a little more for maybe quilting, or cotton doesn't have any elasticity. So if you stretch the seam, it's going to snap. Mm-hmm. They do mercerize it, which makes it a little bit stronger. It gives it some luster, and also pre-shrinks the thread. But typically we would be, for machine sewing, using either 100% polyester or a cotton wrapped polyester. Like the turco satin you just showed is a cotton wrapped polyester. But polyester is really what we're going to use most of the time. It's inexpensive, it's strong thread, it has a tiny bit of give to it. Most of your all-purpose thread, or your thread that you would be using in your straight stitch machine, is most likely going to be polyester. Once in a while you might get a cotton covered, but typically polyester thread. Serger thread is 100% polyester as well. And then the third thread that we use is nylon thread, and nylon is the strongest of the 3. Mm-hmm. It is the most flexible of the 3. So typically an indoor upholstery thread would be nylon thread. And because if you can think about sitting on a cushion, those seams really have a lot of stress applied to them. So the nylon has some, has some give.
And Clark upholstery thread, and it is nylon.
Yep.
100%.
The drawback to nylon, and this one's really important for our industry, nylon cannot handle UV rays. So it is not made to be in the sun. It will quickly fade in color, and it will start deteriorating. So, and it's also, you want to be careful if you're going to hit that with the iron. It can only take a real low heat. You'll even see on your, maybe your boiler iron, there's a very low setting on that for nylon. So you have to be careful with that as well. So it's important to know that if you're making outdoor cushions, you're going to want to stick with a polyester upholstery weight thread. That's fine for outdoors. In fact, all the outdoor threads are going to be made with polyester pretty much.
Right.
Those are more naturally UV resistant, and they're going to hold up to the elements better.
Okay.
You don't want to use that nylon thread. Yeah. You don't want to use, like I have 2 threads here. This one is a bonded outdoor thread, bonded polyester. This one is a bonded nylon. They look the same, but if I use this on outdoor cushions, it's going to deteriorate.
Oh, wow.
So be mindful of that when you which fiber you're using. And we wouldn't want to use cotton outside either. It absorbs water and get all wet and soggy. So polyester thread will be your outdoor threads.
That was worth the price of admission for this podcast. Okay.
Well, I have one other big one, but yeah, that's a big one for me too, because I didn't know the difference before that. Oh, I can't use nylon thread outside.
I know, you're like, nylon thread. I mean, it's like the heaviest, that bonded nylon thread. It's like, you cannot break it. How
this is
break
really
outside?
This is a very heavy thread.
So, that was eye-opening.
You would not want to use that thread to sew rings on your Roman shades either, that nylon thread. It's directly
or side hems, or blind hem side hems, or
yeah. I'm not sure why I even have it, but I won't be using it for rings. That's for darn sure.
That's right. So now we know.
But that's something I'm looking at the weight of it. And if the color matched the front of my shade, I might just grab something like that, thinking, oh, that's a nice heavy duty thread. I'll use that. And I don't know that I've given that much thought before.
Exactly. Yep. So that's another thing, you know, like I have these threads, like I said, outdoor and indoor, and I can't tell just by reading the label on the bottom. So you can mark that too with a Sharpie, indoor, outdoor, make sure you know which one you're grabbing.
Right.
You could certainly use that, you know, it's not going to hurt anything to use the outdoor polyester thread indoor. It's fine.
Right.
But this would be appropriate, especially if you're using like a sunbrella fabric. You want a thread that's going to have the same properties that your fabric's going to have. And so that would be one instance where you want to match your thread to your fabric.
Wow.
I know that worth the price of admission, Angie.
So let's talk a little bit more about, all right, so you talked about the best threads to use for outdoor, you know, types of fabrics. What about, should you pair, you know, a polyester thread with a polyester fabric, a cotton with a cotton fabric, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter as much for indoors. And most of the time, I would say probably 90% of the time, we're just going to be using polyester thread. Most likely those, you know, what would be considered an all-purpose thread would be about between a Tex 30 and a Tex 40, and it's typically a polyester thread. You can use that for most of your drapery weights, you know, and even shears. Polyester is going to be fine for that.
Okay.
Again, you know, I wouldn't use nylon for that, because if I want to, you know, press it or with the iron, and again, we just have to kind of be mindful where we're using nylon thread if it's going to be in the window. So, but most of the time it's probably polyester, once in a while a cotton covered polyester. Something to think about, there are times that I use 100% cotton thread. I do the French blackout method for my Roman shades, and I've done a lot of testing of threads, because you can actually get pinholes of light with French blackout, and it's not because of the that you're making holes in your fabric like you would be with a synthetic blackout fabric. It's the light actually can pass through the thread itself. So if you're using a synthetic thread like polyester, especially with the lighter colors, the light will pass through. And I think the cotton helps because cotton absorbs the dye all the way through the fibers, unlike the synthetic threads.
Okay.
So it tends to block more of the light for French blackout. You can still have a little bit of an issue if you're using a white or an off-white, even if it's 100% cotton. You can get a really faint pinhole if you push the shade against the glass or you shine like an LED flashlight right underneath it. You might see a little bit of light, but overall it's fine. So I do use 100% cotton thread for that. And another place that cotton might be really helpful for us is if we are sewing our pleats and we're doing blackout and it's a light colored fabric, and we're finding that we get those burn marks, those black marks. What's actually happening with all the synthetic thread, the synthetic fabric, the synthetic buckram, is that when the needle's piercing in and out of the fabric, it creates a tremendous amount of heat, friction and heat. And you're actually burning it. If you touch the needle after you do a run of stitching, it's hot.
Right.
So if you can try to eliminate some of those synthetics, maybe use a cotton, mercerized cotton thread, maybe switch out to a woven buckram if you can. Just try to eliminate as many of the synthetics in that application as possible. We can't do anything about the face fabric, but maybe use a cotton blackout instead of a polyester blackout. And then sew slowly and use the smallest needle that you can get away with, and you'll probably be okay.
Okay.
So I do use it for that too. I use cotton thread in that instance as well.
I don't even think I don't think I have any all cotton thread. I'd have to look and see.
Yeah, you can get it still. It's the thread that we buy that's cotton is mercerized. So that gives it more strength. Like I said, it pre-shrinks it, and it'll last long enough for us. It's not going to last as long as a polyester, but it works well.
So you talked about needle size, and I guess it's pretty obvious that the larger the thread, the larger the needle size, the heavier. I was always saying larger. Like I thought text meant that the diameter of the thread itself was
Yeah.
bigger,
Did
but it's
too.
weight.
It's weight. It's
Yeah.
weight because cotton threads are heavier than synthetic. So you could have two Tex 40 threads, one that's cotton or a cotton wrapped poly and the other is polyester. And the cotton could appear to be finer because it's just heavier. It's heavier thread.
So does
But it's
needle
gonna be
size,
close.
can you use a lower text and a large, like on a walking foot, and a heavier text on a straight stitch with maybe a 14 needle?
You can, first thing you can do is get yourself a chart from WRT. Here's what it looks like. And
I'll
they
put a
list
link to
out-
that chart in the blog, okay?
Yeah, for sure. And they list out text size and then the suggested needle size. And
Okay.
there's some wiggle room there, but what I usually do, our machines have a range. Like our walking foot machine has a range. Mine, the manual says I can use a size 18 needle up to 24, but I like to test the boundaries. I wouldn't go any higher than a 24 because then you're going to break something down in your machine.
Right.
But I have been able to use a size 16 needle and a Tex 40 thread, which would be what I typically use on my straight stitch machine.
Right.
I'm able to do that successfully. So if I want to sew pleats on my shears or a lighter weight fabric, I'll do that because I like to use my walking foot for pleats. So you can test the boundaries on that and just kind of see if it'll work. Typically, your thread should, once it's in the needle, there should be about 40% of the eye of the needle still open. That's kind of a good way to determine, is this the right size thread for this needle? Or just look at the chart.
Yeah, that's
easy
because the thread doesn't go straight through. It has to go like that.
Right. Yep. So, and some machines just break the rules. I have a tacker that I'm supposed to use a Tex 40 thread, which, is considered, straight stitch thread, and a size 24 needle. So that thread's probably taking up 10% of the eye of the needle, but that's what I'm supposed to use and it works. I don't know why it works, but I wouldn't try that all the time. So, and you definitely don't want to go with a thread that's too big for your needle. You're going to see shredding. You're going to get that little coil right by the eye after everything breaks. And so if anything, err on the smaller side, maybe for your thread based on your needle.
Okay.
Fascinating. I never would have tried that on the walking foot.
No, I wouldn't
give
have
it a
either.
shot.
And that's one reason why
Works
I
really
always
well
want
for
to
me.
I want to have a walking foot and a straight stitch because I want to be able to use a smaller needle. So
Yep.
I
I like to test.
I like learning these things.
Yeah, I like to test those boundaries because you just never know. And I've had 2 walking foot machines now, and I've been able to do it on both. So you do have to tighten up your tension a little bit.
Okay.
But it seems to work fine.
Okay.
And one of the tips that I'll share from one of our classes, Emily Pettit, when she's teaching the slipcover classes, her slipcover classes here at Workroom Tech, she'll have like bonded nylon on top and a cotton covered polyester in the bobbin, so that it's really heavy and durable, but you still can take it apart. Like if you need to, especially for students, if you need to rip something out, you cannot rip out bonded nylon thread.
Yeah, so, that's a great tip.
It's sort of like a combination. And, my mother always said, whatever's on top, it needs to be in the bobbin,
That's what I was thinking.
You can mix it up. And the other reason that's a good idea, bonded threads are they're not really challenging to sew with, but you do have to make tension adjustments. And oftentimes you have to adjust your bobbin tension, the little screw on your bobbin case. So you can use what they call a soft thread in the bobbin and a bonded and kind of eliminate those tension issues.
Okay.
The other thing that you can do is just have a separate bobbin case because they're not very expensive. Just keep a separate one, have it adjusted for tension for those bonded threads, and then label it, set it aside, and pull it out when you're going to use those threads.
That's a great idea. That never occurred to me, but that is a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Brilliant.
All right. Now we've got two things that are worth the price of admission alone.
There's two. Let's see if we can find some more.
But we haven't talked about hand sewing yet, Angie.
Oh, okay. Hand sewing. So typically, if a thread is labeled as hand sewing, like I think I don't have one here, but the Coats dual duty hand quilting thread, which is wonderful thread.
I've got a whole bin of it.
Yes.
Every color.
I have almost every color, not quite, but I love that thread. But those threads have a coating on them that's going to make the hand sewing process so much nicer. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And that thread has a glazed finish.
And quilting.
Yes. So typically if it says hand, you don't want to run those through your sewing machine because they have a glaze. You don't want to gum up your tension discs over time. There was kind of conflicting information on the website. Some people were like, yes, you can use it in your machine. Others like, don't use it in your machine. So proceed at your own risk if you want to do that. But they make really wonderful hand sewing because they don't tangle, they don't fray, they don't knot up like a soft thread would do. Once in a while, I've got to use just a regular, maybe a Gutermann, what they call all-purpose thread. And those are not fun to hand sew with. They're they tangle, we have to make do once in a while, but
I have used this in the machine when I need a color, like I'm top stitching next to a zipper. Like I'm not going to put it in and sew with it all day.
Yeah, you're probably fine. Yep.
And I put it in the bobbin and put it on the top and it's fine.
Yeah. Even if you had to take like a little piece of interlining, you could clean out your discs if you had to, your tension.
This is one of the few threads that I keep lots of colors.
Yeah. Yep. No, and that one's great for sewing rings on Roman shades. I think I like it for that.
Yep.
And then the other one that we tend to use a lot in our industry is the waxed Silimide thread. And so I'm going to blow your mind maybe a little bit with this. So I hope I don't get hate mail. It's 100% nylon. This thread is 100% nylon. So it doesn't pair well with sunshine. It even says here, keep in a cool place away from heat and sun. So if you were to sew your Roman shade rings on with this thread, there's a good chance they're going to be popping off and you're going to get a call back because it's not made for that reason.
I've had that happen. Raising my hand.
Really? Oh, okay.
Many years ago when I first learned about the Silimide thread, I'm like, I love sewing with this thread. This is wonderful. I sewed rings on Roman shades.
Yeah.
And the ones on the bottom first popped off.
Right. Because I don't think there's any hand sewing that we do or any sewing where the thread is that exposed to the sun as it is on the back of a Roman shade.
Right.
And I don't know, I may have done a couple of shades like that too. Time will tell.
Oh, well. It's
Not
also
anymore,
stretchy. It has a lot of stretch. So if it's like pulling up on a Roman shade ring, it's going to stretch the thread.
Right. And that's because nylon, it's very strong, but it's going to have the most give to it. So we just have to be careful where we use it. I still like it for, hand sewing a bottom hem on a drapery panel. It's just really nice. It's got a wax coating. It's actually a petroleum-based wax with a little bit of silicone. And it's just not even the same to put conditioners on regular thread. These hand sewing threads just are so much nicer to use.
Okay.
So I would use it for hand sewing fringe, on the front.
Yeah, exactly.
Or on a pillow. Okay.
All right. So I'm thinking of the times I've used it to hand sew the side hems of drapery.
Like the lead, like the leading edge.
Back from anybody in all those years.
I've done it too. And I wonder about that. The lead edge kind of curls in and you wonder how exposed is it? So I don't know. I don't know on that one.
Okay. I don't think I ever paid attention to the fact that it was nylon and it was.
I didn't either. And I'm calling the New Bedford Thread Company who makes it, and I'm calling Wawa. Can this be in the sun? And it's right there. I never ever noticed it. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's just something to be mindful of. I still love the thread, and I'll use it where I can, but I'll find something else for those sunny spots.
Is that card open? Do you want to show how to open it?
Yeah, I can show how to open it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Can you all see? I don't know how much you can see. Can you see there's perforations here that go all the way to the back? And you just kind of rock this back and forth and pull that part off. And basically the thread is just looped through here a couple of times. And what you're going to see are two loops there. And you just cut through both of those. You cut right here. I'm just going to do it. You just cut your loops
every time.
And you can take those little twists off if you want to, but you don't really have to. And then there's a dispenser here, like a tissue box. And then you can just, grab one of your threads and pull it out. And you get a pre-measured, it's about 40 inches. They say 30 something, but it's about 40 inches, which is great if you're doing like a single strand. It's a little short, I think, for a double strand. And I know I've heard of some workrooms who kind of go in there and just cut one loop. But I think you would have to open up the box. So I opened this one up so you can kind of see what's going on in there. I don't know. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So I haven't been very successful with figuring out which loop not to cut for that. So I don't know. Maybe someone else can comment on that has more experience with it. But that is how you handle one of those skeins of Silimide thread.
Okay.
It's interesting with the Silimide thread that they have that pre-measured size, because that's one of the biggest mistakes that new students make here at Workroom Tech. And maybe she knows where I'm going with this, is they pull off a really, really long piece of thread because they don't want to make a knot. They're fearful of having to run out of thread and have to make a knot. Well, making a knot is so much easier than taking a stitch and then pulling through all that thread. I always tease students, like, are you catching the big fish over there? You're like pulling the threads in. And I find it is not uncommon for people when they're learning, they'll pull off a piece of thread that is longer than they are tall.
Yes.
That happens. We have a class starting here tomorrow, a drapery class, and they'll be hand sewing side hems, and I can guarantee you they'll be pulling off way more thread than they think they need.
Yes.
It's better to work with pre-measured shorter pieces, and I usually pull off about a yard, like of your arm.
Yeah.
And just make a knot. It's okay.
I'm notorious for going too far, trying to get to the end of my hem with a little piece of thread. And then
I can make it work.
My needle won't go in there.
Yes.
Why I do it, but I think it's laziness, because I don't want to, like you say, I don't want to not get more thread out. I only have this far left to go. Maybe I'll make it. I don't
not worth
it. I never
it.
make it.
No. It's like Murphy's law of sewing is your
Yeah.
thread's going to run out. You're not going to be able to make it. So
exactly.
just stop while you still got enough to make a knot.
Susan, there are two things. One, I had purchased your Craftsy class and you showed how to bury the knot. And I had never seen that before. So that was a game changer to me, because I'm fairly tall and I absolutely know that every time I pulled off thread, it was much taller than I was, because I absolutely hate stopping and changing needles. So when I use the Silimide thread, I pull them out and I thread 3 needles.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
smart.
So it's all ready for me as I get to the end, and especially that, oh, I can get a couple more. I just stop, I do the knot, and I go on to the next
Okay,
one.
I'm gonna employ that, because I need to grow up in that area.
And honestly, even if I'm not using the Silimide thread, which clearly I shouldn't be using for my side hems, if I'm using a softer thread, if I'm cutting off longer pieces, it's tangling and knotting.
Yes,
So it's not more productive, it's less productive.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And another hand sewing tip is that I've seen people say, like, they're sewing silk fabrics, so they want to get like silk thread and think that that's really high end.
Yes.
That's not gonna last. Okay. Silk thread is a bad idea.
Right.
So don't do it.
I inherited a whole box. It was not the dance cookie box, but it was a box of threads from my husband's grandmother, and they were all silk threads. And my mother-in-law was so pleased to give them to me. And they were already like old and rotted when she gave them to me.
Yeah.
Like, Oh, they're so pretty. Thank you.
Yeah, those threads, those natural fiber threads, like, silk, rayon, cotton, wool, those deteriorate. They can get moldy, they can get mildew. They don't last forever. So
Right.
yeah.
So with we talked about the glaze thread that coats hand
Mhm.
quilting thread, which I've used my whole career, 35 years, and
Mhm.
never had a side hem fall out, never had Roman shade rings fall off using that thread. So I'm
Yeah.
really comfortable with it.
Mhm.
But if I was not going to use that, what conditioner or wax or product do you use to run your thread through to make it not tangle up?
There's you've got a couple of options. I've got 3 options right here. The old fashioned beeswax
Yeah.
is still a viable option, and you just can, these don't get old. I mean, you can just,
No.
beeswax is naturally, like, it doesn't mildew or mold or anything. So I don't know how old this one is, but it's pretty old. But you just run your thread through the beeswax, and then you can just run in the thread through your fingers after that to kind of distribute it. I know some people like to hit it with the iron after that, but if you do on your padded table, put something down first. You don't want to be getting wax all over that. I don't use it a ton, the wax. I tend to go for silicone, which, this is old too. This is old. I don't think you can buy this anymore, but
You
there's another
can't.
brand.
Look at you two. I have
can.
nothing to hold up.
But they have a replacement for
Where's
it,
yours?
Angie. Thread
Yeah, the
Magic.
thread magic,
Yeah.
right? Oh, you have yours too, Seal.
I
How cute.
do.
Yeah. Did you
Got
keep the
quite a
sticker
dent
on
in
the
it.
back so it's got
Yeah.
the hinge right there?
Oh, I don't have a hinge.
Oh, Seal, it says right there, don't remove.
Why, yes, it does. Oh, well.
You didn't lose the lid. You're fine.
Yeah.
So I tend to use this more, but yeah, you can get one called Thread Magic. You can buy it. You can probably get it at Joann's, but you can get it on Wall Whack or Wall Walk, and it's just paste silicone, and you just take your thread and just kind of run it through, with your thumb, run it through a couple of times, and then just distribute it on your thread, and it helps. It's not the same as a hand quilting thread or wax silimide, but it does help. Because, we all have, once in a while, we need a color match, and we're just going to use what we have. So if you have to use like a dual duty, they call these soft threads. They are really soft. You're just gonna have to muddle through, but this stuff helps. You can also, in a pinch, you can use a drop of Sewer's Aid, which is just liquid silicone.
Right.
Okay.
Just put
Right.
a drop between your fingers and do the same thing. Just distribute it through that, and that works as well. So it helps,
Nice. Well, you talked about the soft threads, and that would be small spools. And I think I know, Seal, you have one of those tools.
I
A
do.
tool or a jig that you put in your sewing
Ann
machine.
Johnson introduced me to this, and it is the Specialty Spool pin adapter. And this is what it looks like. And it goes on your thread. And I'm going to share a short video that I have of me using this. And all I have to do is share my screen with all of you and get this right. Hi, I want to share with you a gadget I learned about from Ann Johnson that helps with using different size spools of thread on our machines. It's called the Specialty Spool Pin Adapter, and it comes packaged like this. Comes with instructions, comes with the main piece, comes with 2 different sets of discs, which I'll explain, and 2 extra sets of screws. If you've ever had to use a smaller size spool rather than your cone threads, I find it's more of a problem with other thread manufacturers than Gutermann. If there's a little notch in the spool itself for holding the thread tends to get caught on it. With the Gutermann, it tends to get caught on the paper. So if you're trying to, I use it more on my blind hammer than on my straight stick because I like a match. Sometimes that's getting caught on the paper. Yes, you could just pull the paper off. That would be easy. But sometimes it's the notch itself that keeps getting caught. And that's where this little gadget comes in really handy. It slides onto the post and you tighten it with the screws. You don't want to over tighten. Then you use these discs to keep the spool from spinning off. They recommend you do it this way. I found that with this size spool, I made out a little better by doing it this way. And then you want the thread unwinding in the direction of the thread path. So it's coming from behind the spool in this case because it's going up and through the guide. So I'm just going to wind that up a little bit. I'm going to slide this on. And you want these discs to keep the spool from spinning off or falling off, but you don't want it so tight that it can't move. That's too tight. So we'll just loosen it up a little bit. And when the spool can move easily, then you've got it on the right tension. And then this allows you to use any spool of thread that you might have that matches the fabric that you're working with. As I said, I tend to use it more on my blind hemmer than I do my straight stitch because I can get away with some of the more neutral shades and not matching as much if I'm not doing pattern matching, if I'm just doing regular sewing. But this gives you the chance to get a really great color match without having to buy the large spools. So that is the Specialty Spool Pin Adapter.
Wow.
This
I
is
need
what
that.
it looks like.
That's nice.
Yeah, it really is. I admit I'm a
Mhm.
gadget girl, and Anne had posted this on her Facebook page. So I immediately ordered it because it's a
Mhm.
gadget, but it is handy. And you can use it
Mhm.
on your straight stitch. You can use it on the blind hammer, as you saw, but it keeps it from getting tangled and it allows it to move more smoothly. In the very beginning of sewing with the thread on the post straight up and down, it jumped a little bit. And that's one of the other big problems with it. So yeah, it's a great little gadget.
I need that for just like top stitching, a short pass.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it's quick off and on. It's easy.
Yeah. The reason why we have such trouble, like you were saying, the thread bounces around is because these spools are wrapped, like the coat spools are wrapped like our bobbins are. They're stack wrapped. Say that fast 3 times. So they're not intended to be taken up off the top of the spool. Like the cones are wrapped in a crisscross manner, and those are intended to be, up through our thread guide and taken off the top. So yeah, anytime we're trying to take these threads, these spools, and force them to come off, we're adding an extra twist to the thread, and it's going to bounce around. You're going to cause excess tension problems, and then you get the thread winding around the actual post of your thread stand, and all of a sudden everything locks up and So I love that gadget, Seal. That's awesome. I have something that I do that works well for me, and that is I will put these on the post of the thread stand, and instead of going up through the thread guide, I take them straight to the machine, and they work like they do on the older machines. They just unwind, like they normally would. But hey, if you've got that gadget, that is the way to go. I love that.
Yeah.
The other thing I use a lot, I use these spools from Gutermann.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the thing I love about, there's a couple things I love about these. First thing I should mention is that you can get a color chart for these from WWAC, and it has every one of their, these things are huge.
That is
all of their
beautiful.
colors, aren't they beautiful?
So
And
beautiful.
this is real thread. These are not photocopies, and you can pop these out, take it over to your fabric, lay it on there, and get a good color match. And Gutermann has got, for their Mara line, they have all kinds of weights of thread that you can purchase. And I love that because there are obscure colors like for upholstery weight or even a Tex 40 that I want to use. And I don't want to buy a large cone of thread. You know how much those cost.
Right.
So you can buy it in these small spools. And again, the issue with these, even though these are stack wrapped, or not stack wrapped, sorry, they're crisscrossed.
Mhm.
Yeah, just like our cone. So it's fine to dispense them off of the end of the cone. But the problem is because it's raised, the thread tangles again around the bottom
Okay.
and locks up. So there's a couple of things that you can do to eliminate that. I just made these little donuts. This is excess leftover
yum.
rolly table pad. I don't rolly table padding. So it's like 1/4 inch thick felt. And I just use the grommet press and cut some out. And that I just push it onto the bottom, set that on my thread stand, and I have never had another issue with it.
Oh,
So
that's
it sews wonderfully. So you can just take that right up through the top thread guide and it works really well.
Nice.
So just really anything that you can use to let the thread set on something and not just be loose. You could also try those thread nets or those little thread socks that you can buy. You can buy them in a tube and cut little lengths. You could try that as well. But this works really well. And you could just use regular craft felt and cut them out and put a few layers together. And so I keep those at all my machines because I love buying $4 or $5 spool instead of a $25, $30 cone. So
Right. And where do you get that Gutermann thread?
I buy that from WWAC.
Okay.
I love WWAC. Their customer service is so good. You think I would be getting paid for this commercial that I'm giving them, but I'm really not. But I love them because great customer service, low shipping. If you have a $99 order, you get free shipping. And yeah, so that works.
It always
well.
comes
and then
quickly too.
Yeah, it comes
It
quickly.
does
Really,
very quickly.
really great company. So one thread we haven't talked about, my least favorite thread, is monofilament thread. What is it? It's clear. I mean, people, it's more of a commercial workroom. Yeah. It's like a clear thread, so you never have to change your thread, you never have to color match, right? It sounds like perfect.
Right.
Till you use it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is just what it says. It's monofilament, meaning one filament. It's not, it's not like the other threads that have plies and are twisted together. It's just one filament, and it's typically nylon. You can find polyester monofilament, but it's not as common. It's most of the time it's nylon.
Okay.
And yeah, the benefits, like you said, Susan, would be not having to color match. And it's got some elasticity, which is, can be helpful. I think it's just personal preference. Some workrooms I know use that and they love it, and their designers and clients don't seem to mind. Other workrooms are like, no, I'm not going to use it. So
I need to share a little story. When I purchased my blind hammer from someone, I had been shown how to use a blind hammer. I was still really new in the industry. And the person who showed me how to use a blind hammer used the monofilament thread. And when I went to buy it, I asked this person about using monofilament, and she was questioning whether or not she should sell her machine to me. I never use that. It's not as couture, and it is not as well done. And she kind of caught herself, and she said, I feel that because of the kind of work I'm doing, I want to color match, and I want it to be a beautiful finished product and not look like it's from a commercial workroom. So she wasn't being snobby about it. She was really proud of the work that she did. And I tried monofilament thread once, and I won't ever use it again. I really don't care for it.
My mom had a huge one. I mean, they're like giant, right?
Like a giant.
Yeah. So she had
bottle.
Yeah, and yes, it is like the box size.
Yeah. 2 liter bottle of
2 liter
soda.
Pepsi. And so we were using that early in my career when I started my workroom, because mom had that, and we never used it. We still never used it. 30 years later, it's still there. And one of the designers I worked with wrote in big capital letters with a red marker on her work order, "Do not use that plastic thread."
Yeah. Yep. And
Good
if if someone is going to use it, you're going to have to adjust the tension on your machine.
Mhm.
It doesn't behave like regular, a soft thread would. Um, yeah. I used to use it years ago when I did more upholstery. I would make my double welt cord with it
Mhm.
so that or my single welt cord, because back then I would, make the welt cord separately and then sew it on. And I didn't want to see any stitching from the
Right.
welt cord.
And
Now
that's
I
a good
make the welt
reason.
cord. I took Nancy Lett's class and I make the welt cord when I'm sewing it on. So I don't need that anymore. But yeah, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but you do you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I
And
like
there's
that,
some-
Angie.
I know we're running way long, but since we're doing a video today, I didn't want to stop and make this 2 podcasts. So we're going to keep going. And I think there's probably maybe 1 or 2 more threads that we have in our workrooms we haven't talked about. And one of them would be for our blind hammer, something like a Scala thread. That's a good
Right.
thread. And what's
Right.
the other names? Got them right here behind me, but they're almost like a clear thread.
Yeah. Some of them are a monofilament thread. Some of
And I have
the
a Seraphil.
uh-huh.
I don't know what that is. I don't know where that came from. I think someone probably
I did
Is
not
it a
have good
monofilament
luck
or
with
is it a
doesn't have
seems to have some
it says Seraphil,
mm-hmm.
color, lot number. The numbers are R8081. I don't know. Can you see this? I don't know what it is.
I have something like that in my workroom, Susan. I tried it and I didn't care for.
It's
Mhm.
very thin. It's
Yeah.
I think it's a white color, but it's almost clear.
Yeah, that's probably a polyester thread. The blind hem that are dedicated for blind hemmers are typically very, very fine threads. They can be as low as a Tex 7. They're like gossamer, like a
Okay.
piece
Yeah.
of
So this is the
hair.
one. This is Scala thread, and this one's Gutermann. Has Gutermann on one side and A&E on the other. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, so do my cones. Yeah, that one's probably a polyester, Susan. And then they're very, very fine. And my blind hammer will not take those fine threads. If I tried it initially when I got mine. I have a newer blind hammer that's been made just for draperies, and they suggest I use a Tex 40, which is again a much,
Yeah, that's
what you'd
what I
use in
use.
your straight stitch, right? So I can't use that in my blind hammer, but those older blind hammers, some of them were made more for apparel. They like that kind of, that kind of fine thread. But you can use, it just depends on your machine, what you can use, test it out.
I think on sheer, this is phenomenal. If you could use a smaller size needle on your blind hammer and get it worked out. So I don't know what to do with this.
You know what? I have a bunch. I have some blind hem thread too that I cannot use in my machine. So I need to find somebody that wants it.
Yeah, you'll find it at home.
The other thread that is specific for a machine would be serger thread. That kind of thread is 100% polyester, and it has they've done a process to, I don't know if it's a gassing process, I can't remember, but to make it smooth and so that it doesn't create excess lint, which I know is hard to believe because there's so much lint produced when we're cutting our fabrics. But you really do want to go with a serger thread in your serger for that reason. You don't want, with that high speed sewing, there would be a lot of lint buildup within the machine part.
And they're such finicky machines anyway. I think Susan and I are going to show the same thing.
Yeah, so I've got the big spools of Maxi Lock and
Maxi Lock's a good brand, and that's a Tex 27, so that's lighter weight than like all-purpose thread. And because we're doing 3 or 4 strands of thread, we don't want a big, heavy, bulky seam. So typically that's going to be a little bit on the lighter side. But you could use that thread. You can use serger thread in your straight stitch if you wanted to with a sheer fabric. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I've used serger thread on my blind hammer.
I do too.
I have too, now that we're mentioning it. That's because of color. I have more serger. I think in the industrial machine arena, I think I have more colors available to me in my Maxi Lock threads. I have probably 3,000 Gutermann threads from my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a really nice thread for blind hemming because the blind hem threads are polyester anyway. So
Right.
it's perfectly fine for that. And the weight is really nice for that as well. And
Yeah.
Maxi Lock's not that expensive. You can buy a cone of thread. It's not
Yeah.
like buying one of the bonded upholstery weight cones for $34. So
Right.
it's a good option.
And as far as thread colors go, you know, we talked about getting the smaller spools to get colors because we really don't use color threads that
Right.
often. I mean, look
Right.
behind me at our wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Boy, isn't
Yep.
that exciting?
I've got one of those back there too. It's
Yes, you
boring
do.
too.
I mean, I have colors up top, but
Uh-huh.
you know, my hand sewing thread is where I use the colors. So
Uh-huh.
I think gray, taupe, or tan, ivory, white,
Black.
black.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which,
It's
by the way, black is the hardest thread to thread
Yes.
a needle with.
Yes.
We don't like using black thread.
No.
Mhm.
Very hard to sew with too, because you really can't see as well. Can't
Or
see.
take or pick out when you make a mistake.
Heaven
Yeah.
forbid.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to be able to stock those neutral colors because
Yeah.
it's a thread is a big investment. And, you know, when we're buying for our industrial machines, you need 2 cones so you can be winding a spool of thread while you're sewing, unless you like to stop and
No.
wind alone.
And these are,
So-
you know, they're expensive. They are necessary. They're part
Mhm.
of our businesses. And when we're working on our pricing and our hourly rate, we need to remember all these consumables that we have to buy, like thread.
Mhm.
Right.
That's right.
And
Yep.
it's important to make sure we're compensated for that in our pricing. So
Yeah. And we want to buy good quality thread, you know, cheap thread. Don't buy your serger cones in the dollar bin. It's probably not a dollar bin anymore. Joann's or a Hobby Lobby. You want to get good thread.
yeah, or you know, if you find thread at a consignment shop or at a yard sale or something, you don't know how old it is.
Right.
And it also
Yeah,
has a
thread
shelf-
ages. It
Yeah.
does. Yep.
And you don't want to be
So-
going on those callbacks because the thread rotted out.
Yeah. That's right. No callbacks for the wax Silimide rings.
Exactly.
Fingers crossed.
Or the side hems.
Yeah, exactly. One day they just go, oh, that's it.
Do we have anything else? Did we cover it all?
I've got one more little gadget. You guys have probably seen
we
this
love
thing.
gadgets.
We like our gadgets, but
Yep.
so the spools that I love here, you can get these little can you see
What
that?
is- Yeah,
Yes.
what is it?
This is for your bobbin. So you can put it in the end of your spool, and when you've wound a bobbin with that weird color, I have bobbins are pretty cheap, so I keep quite a few of those. And you can save it if you want to. You can save it.
You know what? That's really brilliant because, especially as you were saying, Susan, like if you're top stitching on something, or we're not stitching miles and miles, we still have to wind the bobbin. We still have to have it. And inevitably, when I need a special color, I can't find the bobbin that matches.
And then you have to unroll and unroll what you have. I feel like that's
I
such a
turn
waste.
around, hand
Yeah.
wind a bobbin. I'm
Just let
guilty.
it go. It just travels down the workroom, and you can go retrieve it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. So that's definitely a time saver.
This
So
is so much fun.
it was, Angie, I have a question for you.
Okay.
With all of this research that you've done, if you could only have one thread, which would it be?
Only one.
That would mean I could only have a couple of sewing machines. That would be really sad. That's like asking me which daughter do I love more. I don't know. Oh gosh. I don't even know, but I bet I know which one Susan is going to say.
Well, what?
Your coat's hand quilting thread.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
or the
turquoise satin.
Yeah.
Okay. Turquoise satin. Yeah.
Satin wins.
Yeah.
Do everything.
Do you hand sew with that too?
Yes, I hand sew with it. Industrial, you can use it on the walking foot, the straight stitch.
Yes.
I've never tried it on the blind hammer, but
I haven't either.
I don't
That's
blind
pretty.
hammer a lot.
That's pretty thick for blind hemming.
Yeah.
That's a pretty thick thread.
one
It would
thing
be
about
great for.
One thing
It'd be
about
great for sewing on rings.
yeah, it's great for sewing on rings.
Yeah.
The one thing about the turquoise satin here in the United States, is we have a very limited amount of colors.
Yes.
It's imported by the Workroom Channel, and they got it especially for me, I guess, because I was like, you gotta sell this, because my friend Penny Bruce was bringing it over in her suitcase when she came to visit from the UK.
Oh, nice.
Hey, they have the turquoise satin and all the colors, and they can get everything. But here, I think they have, the usual white, ivory, maybe a taupe. So the turquoise satin, I love it. I wish we could get more colors here in the United States.
Yeah, it is nice thread, really nice thread. So
Good
that would be your favorite. I was wrong.
Well, I have to tell you though, those the Coats hand quilting thread is, and that's the one thread that I buy that you can buy, like at a retail shop store, big box store. And it's if you have a coupon, buy a bunch of colors.
Yeah.
They are really inexpensive. You can get a spool for under $3 probably, which is nice.
Yeah.
In this day and age.
But
Seal, what about you? What's your
I think this is from Rolly Company, and this is the one I use most frequently, and I can't get the little tag out of it right now. This is the poly wrap, and it's now this says TF6K.
What's that mean, thread expert?
You got me. Let me look at my chart. I don't know.
Is there a TFK on there?
No, I don't think so.
That's crazy.
I don't know. It could be a weight measurement. It could be a color or the type.
It could be. I don't see anything else, but this is what I have on my straight stitch machine most of the time. But again, once I got a walking foot and started using it, this is a 40 weight. And
40 weight or a Tex 40.
Tex 40. Thank you, Fred Expert. You're right. You have to start calling these things by their correct name.
There will be a quiz at the end of this podcast.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's so confusing.
But again, I think that this is a good multi-use, all-purpose thread. And again, it's polyester. But I thank you, Angie, because I think the nylon thread, I think I've used them a couple times without thinking about the consequences of where and when I was using them. They happened to match or they were handy. And now I think I need to make them a little less handy so that I think about it.
Yep. And label your cones so you know when you grab it, if it's nylon or poly. If it's poly, you can go outside with it. Nylon, no way.
Okay.
There you go. That wraps it up.
Thanks so much, Angie.
Thank you, Angie.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Let's think of something else we can get Angie to research.
Oh gosh.
You were really good at it.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. This was great. Bye.
Bye.